Suddenly it hit me that Jonathan had been wearing a BREW. We could just wait until the end of the event and we could kidnap him.
Today on Florida Man, we take a look at the underbelly of the watch world, speaking with a man from an unknown location known only as the greatest watch reviewer in all the world. Secret meetings, backdoor deals, and the unthinkable. Just how far will one go to get their hands on the hottest watches on the market?
Being someone who spends a lot of time looking at watches, I can't really remember where it was the first time I had seen a BREW watch, but what I do remember are my initial thoughts. I found myself thinking, wow, that's pretty cool.
There was simply no denying that the design was cool. Yet, at the same time, from the very beginning, he knew there was no way he could ever buy one.
I mean, how could I? This thing was a shining example of everything I could ever find wrong in a watch.
Issue number one, no brand history.
We all know for a watch brand to be successful, it needs to have at least 1 million years in the industry and a good story to boot. The story's a must, even if you have to make one up.
36 millimeters, seriously? Who was the customer for this thing?
I mean, 36 millimeters is a girl's watch. Don't even get me started on the fact that this thing was powered by a quartz movement.
Looking for a second opinion, G asked his brother his thoughts, and they both quickly agreed that at this price point, this watch was almost guaranteed to feel like junk in the hand. On paper, this watch was a no-go in more ways than he could possibly count, and to add insult to injury, its identity was tied to coffee. But there was one singular thought that would recur every time he would see a BREW watch.
Just wow, that is cool.
Feeling compelled to take a closer look, it wasn't long before down the rabbit hole of what is YouTube he went. One by one, G began to address each of his concerns.
No brand history. Good luck getting around that one.
But as it turns out, although BREW founder Jonathan Ferrer had only started BREW watches in 2015, his lineage read in a manner to suggest he could be heir to horological royalty. Jonathan's grandfather was a designer for Cartier, and his father a jeweler for Tiffany & Co. It would be Jonathan's father that would convince him to study industrial design at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where he would receive a Bachelor of Science and later become an adjunct professor. After an internship at Movado, Ferrer went on to help design and develop licensed and in-house fashion watches for MZ Berger. Here, he would also hone his skills in packaging solutions, retail concepts, marketing, and product development. One more quick stint with another microbrand that is no longer around today, and it was time to launch the BREW Watch Company.
I must admit, with a resume like this, I started to find myself willing to overlook the lack of heritage.
But there was still the issue of the size, movement, and quality, not to mention the coffee thing.
What in the hipster hell was going on here? I mean, I like coffee. I like bourbon more. Yeah, bourbon's the ticket. Nothing like chilling with a great timepiece on the wrist while sipping a great bourbon, but coffee, yeah, I mean, coffee's all right, I guess.
One thing was certain, G knew he had to find a way to get one of these watches in hand.
And then it hit me, you know, being the greatest watch reviewer in the world, all I really needed to do was reach out. Promptly, I cracked open my laptop, poured myself a bourbon, and began to craft an email requesting free watches at once.
Silence, as day after day, no response came. They must be busy, he pondered. Maybe they had never even received his correspondence. But either way, this was no time for quitting.
I found myself following BREW's every move. A pop-up store in New York, they were there, and then they were gone. An event here, an event there. I had only missed them by a day in Florida when they sponsored the winner of the Daytona 200. I could just feel it. It was only a matter of time before I would get hands-on with one of these watches.
And then it happened. G learned through the grapevine of a secret meetup that was taking place in Dallas, Texas, known only to a few as Wind Up. One plane ticket and a weekend room rental later, and there he was, hands-on with the metric.
I said nothing, but inside, I found myself wondering what kind of witchcraft was taking place.
There was no way this watch was 36 millimeter. I mean, the size was next to perfect. It must be an optical illusion brought forth by the retro design, he thought. Maybe it was the way the bracelet tapered. And then there was the quality. He exhausted himself trying to conceptualize how one would even begin to go about producing such quality at this price point.
I could not wait to tell my brother that we had been wrong.
There was only one item left on the checklist, and that was to activate the chronograph and watch as the soulless tick of the quartz movement did its thing.
I was like, wait, do my eyes endeavor to deceive me? Could this be true?
The chrono hand appeared to sweep. His mind raced back to the earlier notion he had had of witchcraft, but the truth turned out to be far less sinister. It seems Jonathan had been working with Japanese special forces on a covert operation to develop a hybrid movement unlike any movement that had come before. Part mechanical, part quartz. Codenamed Mecha Quartz, the project was located about 2 hours from Tokyo and was headed by a little-known organization going by the name of Seiko. While the details are murky to say the least, one thing was clear. Whatever it was they were developing, this watch had it.
Early on, I had came to the decision to make this trip only about an introduction. So I introduced myself to Mr. Ferrer. Nice fellow, I thought, as he shook my hand, the whole time pretending to know nothing of the fact that I was the greatest watch reviewer in the world. A sign of respect, maybe, as not to out my cover in a room full of watch enthusiasts.
The return from this trip would be all but empty-handed, except for the direct contact for Jonathan.
Once again, I poured myself a bourbon and began crafting another email requesting free watches at once.
Yet nothing came. It would be several more months, and then once again, a rumor of another one of the secret wind-up meets. This time, the location would be Chicago. And as it turns out, G's brother was attending a photography event there that same weekend.
This was a sign. I booked my flight. This time, I was coming home with one of these watches one way or the other.
Arriving at the event, G rushed to the brew table where Jonathan greeted him with a hello and made mention of meeting him in Dallas. But once again, pretended to know nothing of the fact he was the greatest watch reviewer in all the world, or that he had requested watches at once. Day one was a bust, but leaving Chicago without one of these watches was not an option. And knowing he would only have one more opportunity to retrieve one before having to leave, G returned to the hotel where he would join his brother for drinks while they devised a plan.
Nothing was off the table. We searched the internet for drawings of the building where the wind-up event was being held. Maybe we could enter through the ductwork. We could be in and out before anyone even knew it.
Was it prints or schematics they needed? They debated before moving on from the idea.
And suddenly it hit me that Jonathan had been wearing a BREW. We could just wait until the end of the event and we could kidnap him.
He had found the line at which his brother would not cross, and his brother was sure to let him know it. To top it off, there was no way he could pull this off on his own. After all, he was the greatest watch reviewer in all of the world and would surely be recognized.
We were running out of time. We needed a better plan and we needed it fast.
He could see his brother thinking it, and to be honest, the thought had already crossed his mind as well. But how? How was it that BREW defied every naysay he threw at it and came out the other end with both of them considering what they were considering?
Say it. Just say it, I said.
And there it was, the words no great watch reviewer ever wants to hear. Maybe we should just each buy one with our own money. They both agreed it was the best option and retired to their quarters with a plan to return to the event the next day and retrieve their new watches. But upon arrival, discovered there was a hiccup. Turns out waiting was a bad move.
The watch I wanted had been sold out.
Jonathan was more than happy to take the order and have one shipped from New York. I guess being the greatest watch reviewer in all the world has its perks after all.
Truth be told, the whole thing stung. I could have ordered online without ever having left the house.
True to his word, Jonathan shipped the watch the moment he returned to New York, and within a few days, G had taken delivery. BREW had succeeded in changing his mind on every preconceived notion that he had had about this watch. Jonathan, however, never knowing just how close he came to a different fate, had made a student out of the greatest watch reviewer in all the world. That is going to wrap up this episode of Florida Man. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join us next week as we talk one-on-one with a Florida man charged with assault after tossing a 3.5-foot alligator at a local watch dealer for suggesting his Omega Speedmaster needed a battery replacement.